Уважаемые коллеги, доброе утро еще раз.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm happy to welcome you all at the Gaidar forum in RANEPA. So welcome our experts. My name is Sergey Aleksandrovich. I'm managing partner of Alliance Consulting Platform Efficient Healthcare. And today we're going to talk about obvious things, but at the same time very complicated and intriguing topic. So the name is how to make the national vaccination schedule an efficient one. So I remember just last year, exactly this time, so we had discussion dedicated to the vaccination. So the last time, so we spoke about the economics, and then we spoke about the economic data, information about the vaccination schedule, and that discussion went to prove that that this question needs to be certainly considered in a holistic way, because all the most important aspects how to plan vaccination schedule, and so they're all interrelated. And in order to arrive at this new vision of the happy future, so then the ideal vaccination schedule, or the efficient vaccination schedule. So how just to put it together, how to arrange it all. So that's why I'd like just to put it down for the general discussion, since we still have little time. And so I'll talk about the presidium. Let me introduce you around, and then so because introduction is very important, and then short comments as well. So first, so then Sergey, this is the Deputy Health Minister of the Russian Federation. Then Sergey Tsib, so first Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade. Mr. Morashko, so Head of the Federal Service, Oversight Service in the area of healthcare. Then. And as I promised, so they represent just the expert community and an industry. I will be introducing them as I give them the floor. And then a couple more words before we begin, and we'll start it right away. So the experts that we have here today, so they know this subject as their own pocket, and it's true that I will immediately just take the bull by the horns, and let's get down to business right away. So please concentrate on the proposals, suggestions, what needs to be done to address the issues that I'm going just to talk about. I'm going to present to your attention, and so to find this magic formula and how we can go about it. And moving over to our discussions, so the way the questions are phrased, as you can see them on the screen. So then the national vaccination schedule is three big blocks. So who, when, and how. So who should take the decisions, make decisions concerning the change of the vaccination schedule. Then localization, production. So it's a very important dilemma that, and recently it has been discussed from the viewpoint of imports replacement to buy or localize, which is better. And then eventually, so we need just not only just to lift the weight, but we need to hold it. And that's more challenging, and that is why. So there are many other issues. So that goes to prove, and it tells us that both international practices and Russian practices, there are many things that we need to discuss and put into play in order to understand what needs to be done. So the first speaker will be Sergey Aleksandrovich. So we put together a few slides, and we studied the United States, Canada, France experience, and so they have their own national schedules, calendars, and so what's in common? So then the decision-making process is pretty much the same everywhere. And so we do have consultants, institutions, consulting groups that collect data, so provide opinion, etc. And then there is this committee that provides recommendations. Then there is the Ministry of Healthcare that actually makes the final decision. So when they include a certain vaccine into the vaccination schedule. So how? So what are the criteria? So the criteria are well known. So first the epidemic situation, social importance, and then economics as well. So economy. So this we have to pay for it. And then the inclusion criteria, they're quite straightforward. They're on the surface. So then proven efficiency and efficacy and proven safety. Then the information, so they collect statistics data, and then we deal certainly with talk to the population. So and when, so that's a very important issue that we need to concentrate on a far better scale. And so then before the inclusion of a new vaccine, so it takes time, and so then the state needs to do the certain tender bidding procedures to allocate financing, etc. And so that's going back to the beginning. So I'm giving the floor to Sergey Aleksandrovich. So let's see how these committees work and the technical groups work. So that they need to meet so regularly and do it. The results should be transparent, obvious, on the surface, and so that the community would be willing to accept it. Sergey Aleksandrovich, so our calendar, our schedule is one of the best already, or not? One of the advanced ones. So, what's the position of the Ministry of Health? So, what are the tasks that we're working on right now? What from the viewpoint? So then that's in the last discussion. So we announced the operation of this commission. So there is the order of the Ministry of Health. So what's planned to do in the work of this commission? What format is being shaped to address this issue? Good afternoon. So I'd like to thank the Gaidar Forum for a chance that it found time for our discussion today, dedicated to vaccination. And so I will start with some basic points. So first, so actually we can conclude that the World Health Organization and other stakeholders, and so they came to the conclusion that among so different factors, the most efficient factor that lengthens people's life is certainly vaccination. And so there are such facts to prove that. So saved lives, so then certainly increasing life expectancy. So there is no need to talk about that. It's all there. But it is exactly vaccination that is, and it's one of the main prevention a method of making the health of the global population better, and life expectancy longer, and so the different anti-microbe drugs, etc. So it's the vaccination is the most efficient, most effective method to counteract many very dangerous diseases and new challenges. So in the Russian Federation, so we have a pretty good worked out regulatory framework that actually regulates the issues related to vaccination. So this is the strategy of national security and safety. So then it's part of the national security. So vaccination is very part of the national security chapter of the Russian Federation. And so then it will be, then the biological security issue will be tabled very soon at the State Duma, and so will be considered as well. And so it will cover the white spots that we still have, and it will be submitted to the attention of the Duma. So that's why vaccination is an issue of biological and national security. And then so let's talk about this slide specifically. We fully realize that it is true that the vaccination it should be there. So it's a must. We do have the national schedule, right? Because this is a document that gives the list of diseases and who should be vaccinated. And so then 12 infections are there, and then there is the schedule for epidemiological indications, 23 infections, and then the vaccination is done. From the budget of the regions, and so for certain epidemiological indications. But for the vaccine as a drug to get into the list and be applied, so that's to make sure that we have just one new infection, a new challenge. So then there are certain criteria to be conformed to it. Epidemiological situation, which is the incidence and the spread of infection. So when it was brought from abroad, for example, then social importance of the infection. So these are the indicators that actually determine the gravity of the disease, treatment of the disease, and then certainly then the reduction of the quality of life up to the death of the patient. And but nothing is done for free, and that's why. So we need financing. So we need to earmark. So the cost of prevention sometimes is more expensive than the cost of treatment. Sometimes it's the other way around. And so Pirogov used to say that the future of medicine is prophylactics, is prevention. And so that's why we have good quality vaccines. These are the four main criteria which determine the infection against which we need to use and to produce or to buy vaccines, and include it in the national calendar or in the calendar for epidemiological indications. So then selection of the vaccine. For example, if we do have this calendar, so first is proven efficiency of the drug. Then proven safety of the drug is very important, and because we know that the vaccine prevention is certainly grounds for a lot of speculations. We're saying that the vaccination is bad for the population, etc.
151% уверены, что
That's why we need to sure that when you introduce a new vaccine, that they work and they're safe. Very important, because some say they're dangerous. So then they should be profitable, and then they should be economically feasible. We need to develop, localize, or buy. So we need to decide what to do, how to produce this, or how to buy, or how to localize this vaccine, because even the richest economies, so there is no such thing as extra money or excessive money, and that is why so the state takes full responsibility for the health of the nation. So they need to at the same time the state commits itself to allocate certain money for the purchase of the drugs and vaccinations, so to ensure that the national calendar is observed and other calendars and schedules are observed. So that's so now just what comes to the fore, especially under the circumstances, remembering about the difficult economic situation. So then certainly the local production of vaccines is very important. So just local production or localized production is very important. Sometimes we have bad experience when we had enough money from the federal budget, but we could not buy the vaccines that we needed, because it was not available in the market, and because it was not produced in Russia, and we could not buy it, and certainly some manufacturers took advantage of it, and so it went even as far as so that they were just making us to buy other vaccines that we didn't want to buy, that we did not need. So, but they actually twisted our arm. So that's why we need to move over to modern vaccines, because we say that we're talking about lots of infections, and it's a big burden, because these are the vaccines that sometimes require several injections, and so that is why very important is to control it and to make combined vaccines. So okay, there is no calendar. It's okay, no schedule. So let me. So one slide is lost. And so then our national schedule has 12 infections, right? So there are 12 infections against which so we do vaccinations, mandatory vaccinations of certain strata of the population. So the money comes from the state, finance from the state. So then this year, so we provide for more than 18 billion rubles to procure vaccines. So the national calendar, the schedule, is not something conservative, not something etched in stone. It's keeps developing, changing, shaping. And so here are the main changes that we can see on this slide. So what do we get from vaccination? So here we have the numbers, so that tell us about the reduction of incidence and morbidity when we talk about social. So for example, measles, 800,000. Now it's only 1.6. And so you know these figures. So then parotitis, whooping cough, diphtheria, poliomyelitis, hepatitis B virus, and so that or rubella, and so they see how. So then the reduction of infant mortality. So a lot of money went into perinatal centers, and a great deal of reduction. Was contributed by the vaccination of pneumococcus infection vaccination. And so then hemophilic infection. So we widened the indication. So here you can see the infant mortality reduction, 30%, and so 30%. So it is taken. So then.
Начали вакцинацию.
Then flu. So flu, just to get almost 50% coverage of flu vaccination. And so against flu agents, and you can see how the coverage, vaccination coverage increases, and against the reduction of the flu morbidity. And so presently, so the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation, jointly with the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and Rospotrebnadzor, so they're working on a plan so to switch over to the so-called Quadrivalent Vaccine. So the point is that actually we are introducing the fourth antigen of flu B, which gives us the aftermath of the epidemics. So at the end of winter and the beginning of summer, and so just trying to fight this aftermath of the flu epidemics, and this on the Ministry of Health, and so yesterday just signed a letter, so that's going to be coordinated and signed at Rospotrebnadzor. And so just how we're working on the national schedule by the professional community. So there was an order issued by the Ministry of Health, but putting together a working group on the vaccination and prevention of vaccination. So the leading specialists are part of this working group, and the practicing doctors are there in this working group, business representatives, other stakeholders, and so the main task of this working group is to hold the evaluation along the lines of this criteria. In order to talk about the pertinence of the infection for its inclusion in the national schedule for epidemiological indications, and at the same time to understand what kind of vaccines we need. So on the left side is what needs to be included, and on the right hand side are the vaccine selection criteria. And since we are talking about improvement of our national schedule, so what is going to be done in the near future? In the near future, in accordance with the plan, so then a 10-year children's lives. So we are talking about the inclusion of two infections that we need to vaccinate, which is the smallpox and rotavirus infection, and then it's
гемофильные инфекции.
and then vaccination of all hemophilic infections. Then we are widening the pneumococcus vaccination, especially then from children from 2 to 5. Pneumococcus infection, then widening the indication for meningococcus infection in the older age. And then the right side and the bottom is availability of production in Russia, either localized or domestically designed, because we need to be sure that anytime we need, so we can either we can always procure the necessary amount and quantity of vaccines for the prevention purposes, and we'll never leave the population. And so we need a good calendar. And that is why, so we'll talk with the ministry. So we have full understanding with the Minister of Trade and Industry and the main representatives of our pharmaceutical companies as well.
Фактических препаратов. Ну вот.
And so this is what I wanted to touch upon. So then another point I wanted to bring to your attention and ask you. So please talk about it. Deal with enlightenment of the population, awareness, so that people so this anti-vaccine lobby, we need to fight this. So we need to talk about the adherence to vaccination, and we need to fight that anti-vaccination lobby. And so besides clean water and clean air, and good environment, ecology. So then the next most important thing that we need to concentrate on, and the main measure just to lengthen the life of people and the healthy life of people and life expectancy, and then the prevention of non-infection diseases, so which is definitely the so vaccination this is the third most important part. Okay, thank you very much, Sergey Aleksandrovich. Now I'd like to give the floor to business. So we have a guest who joined us from abroad, and I'd like to give the floor to him. And so then he will, because he's going to leave, he has to catch the plane, and so I wanted to ask him to comment what Sergey Aleksandrovich was saying. And this is the
роли и государств.
So the participation and the role of the state and business in preventing this anti-vaccination lobby. So Patrick Berstead, Vice President of Global Marketing, I know that you have vast experience in working in global markets. And when we were preparing for this discussion and just checking the positions, you actually spoke how important is the role of business in just complying to the calendar of vaccinations and to be effective and efficient. And we shall go back to the matter. Often when we say vaccination, we mean children, but now we mean both children and adult population, the categories that are often kind of, put on the back burner. So please tell us about your experience and the key success factors in making this ideal vaccination schedule and compliance.
Honorary Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be at this forum, an important forum at a very important time for Russia. We share and we compliment the Minister of Health on the bold initiatives that the government is taking to further protect the population of Russia, to ensure that everybody in Russia has the promise of long life through the prevention of diseases. And we share the Minister's words about the fact that besides clean water, vaccines has probably had more impact on preserving and improving life around the world. And we welcome the opportunity to be part of this journey with Russia. I think that there are a couple of important points when we look at vaccination. It's very important to understand what is the overall objective. Is the objective just to, and I say just, but just to improve or reduce disease in a given cohort? Or is the journey one of elimination of the disease totally? Those objectives are different, but also it highly influences on the strategy that we choose moving forward. If, for example, it is going to be a program where the vaccine is implemented through the community clinics, Russia has a proven history of achieving incredibly high coverage rates in the infant population. However, as the country evolves and as the program evolves to consider potentially school-based programs or vaccination of seniors or adults, those challenges are very, very different. We've learned from countries around the world where they've introduced adolescent vaccines in a school-based program. It is really important to have good coordination between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and even the Ministry of Finance from a long-term budgeting perspective. And I bring this point about long-term budgeting because, why are there so few global manufacturers of vaccines today? And actually, if you look at the number of global manufacturers today, and there are probably only about 4, this number has reduced dramatically over the last 5 and the last 10 years. It is technically incredibly challenging. Vaccines manufacturing is capital intensive. The timelines are incredibly long. It may take from 2 to 4 years from the start of bulk manufacturing to the end of a vial being distributed or a syringe being distributed in the market. And even from a research and development perspective, it could take 20 years from the start of research to the final product in order to deliver an effective, a safe, and reliable vaccine. So long-term planning is really important. So as we talk about the introduction of rotavirus, varicella in Russia, it is very important that we have good coordination between the Ministry of Health, the regional level logistical groups, as well as the local healthcare clinics, so that we can plan effectively. The minister made the point about quality supply, and we share this objective. It is critical that the population of Russia gets the most effective, the safest, and authentic vaccines to protect the population. So reliable supply chain is really important, because once we start a program, the last thing that we want for the Ministry of Health is to run out of vaccine. That is not good for the ministry, it's not good for industry, and it's definitely not good for the population, because we will never achieve the objectives. So I think as the ministry proceeds down this journey of introducing the new calendar, a good coordination, long-term planning is really important, because the cycle times, as I say, of planning this is long. We don't just have millions of doses available to supply overnight. It's not like tablets. The other very important point is over at the Gaidar Forum, we've heard a lot about digital. And I see digital technology playing a very important role in supporting the Ministry of Health and supporting the goals of wanting to improve the population of health in Russia. Because on the one hand, having good data, understanding the epidemiology of the disease, understanding the prevalence of the disease at a local level, city level, community level, regional level, and then having good aggregated data at the national level, so that we can show that in 2024, which is one of the Minister of Health's goals, is to show an improvement in the quality of life and longevity of the population in Russia. Having good data, published data, showing the good return on investment is going to be very important for the industry, as well as the Ministry of Health, as well as the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Finance. So we share, once again, those goals. Minister, you've made a very important point about vaccine hesitancy or anti-vax, and this is a real threat. We share your concern, we share your threat, and I thank you for making the point about we need to fight against it. You know, we live in a crazy world where in 2019, people question the efficacy and the safety or even the need of vaccination. You mentioned that in Russia you have an excellent program. That is, we are here today thanks to the decisions that our governments or our parents took to protect us. But we have modern day parents who kind of question whether we need vaccination. So awareness, education at the physician level, education at the parent level, education at the community level is really important. We will not have enough government officials or enough physicians to really spread the word around Russia about the efficacy and safety. But using digital technology to really raise the awareness, improve the education, I think is a very, very important step. But digital technology can also help us improving data surveillance, data monitoring, using blockchain or serialization to ensure that the supply chain is safe, reliable. Tracking the vaccine through the supply chain will be important, but also giving us data to show the effectiveness of the program and how it protects the population in Russia will be another point. But we also could today think about having an electronic vaccine calendar for parents in Russia, whereby using technology, we can track the administration of the first vaccine, but also remind the parent to go back to the clinic for the second dose or the third dose or whatever, so that we ensure the success of the program. Having the vaccine available in the warehouse, in the storage facility is one thing. We don't care about that. We care about the vaccine being in the arm of the baby to protect them from their disease. So those would be my opening comments. I once again say thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this forum. Thank you very much for your comments. We share being part of this journey. It's an honourable journey that you're taking the country on, and we welcome the opportunity to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Патрик, спасибо большое.
Thank you very much indeed. You have made a wonderful recap in a nutshell about the approach and closed immediately several topics, and I suggest we go back half a step and pass the floor to Leila Seymurovna Namazova-Baranova. And so it will take long to introduce her because it will take 5 minutes. But briefly, she is a chairman of the Pediatrician Union of Russia. But before I do, I pass her the floor. I will just name the topic we discuss. To structure the discussion, I thank you, Sergey Aleksandrovich. We have announced the success on including into the schedule the rotavirus infection and smallpox. So we have a pool of topics for discussion in the next block. So we would like to talk about production, manufacturing, but then let's go back to the process when we select the nosologies. So coming back to the slide, so we were talking about the papillomavirus, and we were discussing that, judging by the factors introduced to us, what should match in order so to get it into the calendar, those factors should be present. So these are the numbers of the research that we continue in economics. So reduction of the economic damage by papilloma-associated death. So 25 billion a year with the relevant approach. So we can save 12 and 17 billion. So death rate reduction, again, associated with papilloma. So some 20,000 people less by vaccinations, according to our WHO methodology. The number of saved lives is quite, telling. Again, we spoke about them at the recent forum because this virus causes oncology. And then the number of saved lives, everything we say correlates to the May instructions of the President. And now I pass the floor to you. Give us, for instance, give us an example of papilloma or another nosology, whatever. As an expert, what's your vision and comment? How do you build your activity now within this commission? And probably better, as we say, the recipe is to what should be done to make this process more efficient. Yeah, hello. I thank you for the invitation to participate in this very important event. And thank you for passing the floor to me. I believe that the process that we discussed today, so on the whole, the situation with the national calendar is a puzzle. And there are 7 very important fragments that we need to discuss. First is certainly independent agency that will provide the expert opinion to start talking about the national calendar. Luckily, we have the expert council in the country under the deputy minister, and within the expert community we have independent expert group that can at any time at the ministry request provide expert and expert statements. That's the first step that we luckily have made. And the next step is planning and prioritization. There are many opportunities and infections that can be prevented through vaccination and non-infectious diseases that can be prevented through vaccination. And we really need to properly construct the priority list to make that important short list for the country and then work on it, act upon it. And then the aspect is very important. Production of vaccination is a long time process. It's not just, to make a pill, and swallow. 4 years, from 2 to 4 years it takes. And for instance, if we take the papilloma virus and we want to introduce it in 2023, we need to make the decision now. Then send the message to business, send an inquiry. Will it be national or local production or imported vaccine? But we need to make this decision and then actually instruct the business. If, for instance, we find the money, the funds in 2023, but we cannot get the vaccine from nowhere. And then next, naturally, there is a question of trust in the society, in the community to vaccinations, just like many other things. And that's where joining forces is important by all stakeholders. Why are we discussing the trust today? As a pediatrician community member, I feel responsible for probably improper actions of my colleagues that do not spend enough time to explain the need of vaccination to the parents, or don't answer the questions correctly, don't provide information to the parents or to people of the community who are not medical professionals, who are not healthcare professionals. But there is a number of other aspects, and so is the vaccine supplied in proper quantities? This is not up to us. So do we have proper planning, proper supply? Do we have enough stocks? So we need to work together to create trust of the population through our coordinated effort. And the vaccines that get into the calendar, so efficiency and safety, it's important, but efficiency is important, but safety is more important. We need to be confident when we provide the information to the parents. We need to the proof that the vaccine is safe. And again, it's important to joint efforts. In this country, in Russia, as you mentioned, vaccination to children is kind of a done thing. But today we understand that immunization is much more. A life course vaccination is the trend that, is supported by all global community. And it's obvious that no national projects like oncology or the decade of childhood or 80 plus cannot be carried out without sufficient contribution of the vaccines, because it's the vaccination that protects. And then vaccination becomes a manifestation or component of the state policy. And those who obstruct it should be considered. No, it's not just a democratic right of a citizen to make a decision about himself or the child. It's actually conflicting information to other components of our life. It puts other people into danger, and we need to understand how can we, from the legal point of view, or changing the laws, how we can influence the situation. Because as a pediatrician, I'm concerned with the question. There is a convention on children's rights. It says that the child has the right to be protected from dangers. And there is a decision of a parent who does not vaccinate the child from the infection from the calendar. You don't have to pay even for it, it's paid by the state. And then if the child gets sick, then or probably becomes dies or has impaired health, invalidity, who should be responsible for the treatment, or probably artificial ear in this situation, implant or whatever? So a number of questions that should be pre-considered. And we should not forget about one more thing. If it is a state policy, so probably there should be some other decisions. For instance, we are welcoming digitalization. We do everything through the personal account state services. We pay taxes even, and that's not an innovation. You have to go in December and pay your taxes, but probably vaccination passport should be there, and every citizen should have his own vaccination passport in his personal account of the state services system, and could always see and check what he has done, what he has to do, because many people are oblivious of the fact that adults and elderly people are in danger, and working people of middle age actually are in danger. At any time you can get infected, even if you are a healthy person. So we should consider these aspects, and we should not forget that we are multi-national, multi-ethnic state. We have groups and they have their specifics and genetic specifics. So certainly we need to continue scientific research, because what is good for one ethnic group may fail in another ethnic group, and maybe in some region an infection may be dramatic and needs more protection than in another region. So our country has always been famous for the science and research, and so again, fundamental research for infection diseases and invalidity is important. On the whole, it was in a nutshell what I wanted to say as a professional to the community. Thank you. Indeed, it was quite detailed and very a saturated speech. I indeed thank you. And I believe that we can switch now to the matter, the second matter we're supposed to discuss, about localization, production, or purchase. These are three clear options on the surface, and we made another important slide about vaccination in Russia. It's the state register for 2019. We see that positive Russia prevails, and there is an international share, but still, when we speak about expansion and the delivery, and certainly we should ask ourselves, should we be champions in all kinds of sports, or should we kind of, compromise? If yes, what is the formula of this compromise? Because it's a matter of safety. How do we find this balance, this golden medium, without becoming dependent on something or kind of biased? Could you please comment what is your take? What is the ministry position? So we have been discussing, a lot.
Good afternoon. Thank you for a chance to speak on this subject, and special thanks for the very important subject, very pertinent subject, and considering it jointly with a group of experts and the representatives not only of the executive, legislative power, and business experts are here as well. And this is great. And so what we consider it is wonderful, scrutinized, very good dialogue. And but having listened to our colleagues and Sergey Aleksandrovich specifically and other colleagues, I, as the representative of Ministry of Trade and then Business and Industry, what we see, what our take is certainly then vaccination and prevention is a big contribution to increase people's lives and life expectancy. This is very important. And in order either just to manufacture it ourselves or localize, and there are other points that we need to consider, and I spoke earlier about that. So because this is an element of national security, and that's why we need to develop our own competences. Both vis-à-vis the development of our vaccines and manufacturing the vaccines in Russia. Very important. These are the two main points that actually are very, very important. It's what the Ministry of Health is telling us, and these are the issues. So that they set this task to us. So what to produce, in what quantities, where to localize, how to concentrate, where to go, just short term, mid-term, long term, what products to, what vaccines to manufacture. And this is a very important dialogue that we have with our colleagues from the expert community and from the representatives of the Ministry of Health. And this is very important. There's working in the working groups, etc. We have, so we have special projects, so development of vaccines. So Rospotrebnadzor and other stakeholders and Ministry of Health participate in this product in this project. Other stakeholders involved in research and production of different immunology and biological medicines. So very efficient, and we really hope, we rely for a great deal on their support. And this priority will be certainly very important vector of our development. Because I heard you say that 2023, so then smallpox will be included as a vaccine. So then 2020, yes. Yeah. Sorry, it's so then a different rotavirus, right? I just made a mistake, yeah. And so rotavirus, not smallpox. So very capital intensive, very long-term project, and very expensive. And so depending on the approaches that the different companies employ, because transfer technologies, our own research, for example, our own R&D, but it takes time and money, and that is why so we need to plan well ahead, so that we could act accordingly. And so fully realize that so then our schedule will be widened, and so we're beginning just to work on the development of the vaccine, smallpox vaccine, rotavirus vaccine. So we're going to participate in this development, and I think that and so then the companies present here will speak in great detail about that. So we can conclude that so we managed to achieve good results within the framework of the state program. And so about 49 projects have been so promoted only in the area of vaccination, so then 82 international non-patented non-patented vaccines. So they're the part of the total vaccination schedule. 22 we manufactured ourselves, and so that's why the entire gamut of vaccines, so that a part of the vaccination schedule are produced in Russia, locally manufactured. But we fully realize that so then another tasks that we are that the expert community in the Ministry of Health is putting ahead of us, in front of us. So we need just to realize that the production of new vaccines and the development of new vaccines. So we need just to start developing polyvalent vaccines, multi-purpose vaccines, and to develop new vaccines and multi-purpose recombinant vaccines, because it's high time we started working on this as well. And so then the state program allocated some money, budgeted this, and it's very important that money follows us. And so we supported more than 35 projects in the area of the development of new vaccines, so clinical trials and the tests, etc. Then we supported several programs, so jointly with international companies. So we've done 6 clinical studies within the framework of the state program for development of new vaccines. So we keep working in this area. We're trying to support the projects that are being financed right now from the extra budgetary sources and by the state. And so there are many participants, more than 25 companies, all large Russian institutes, manufacturing companies, other stakeholders, different companies. They participate in the development and financial support. And so the 25 so companies do that. And so we managed so to accumulate all these forces together. Federal Medical Biological Agency, Ministry of Health institutions of the Russian Academy of Sciences, so private businesses participate and invest very actively in this area. International Russian businesses help us a lot. That's why our task was to accumulate, to put together all these efforts, and as a result to put together a program document, so to understand which way we need to go, what we need to finance, and when eventually we'll get the result. And this is very important. So there was a question concerning Sergey Aleksandrovich raised this issue. So when we needed to very quickly buy a vaccine, it was not available, and we need to give it to so we need to do it well beforehand. So we need just to manufacture this vaccine. So poliomyelitis, for example. So we didn't have it, and Vladimir Khristenko helped us a lot. So in order to implement all these plans in the development of the vaccine for poliomyelitis. And so this is because this is very difficult. Procurement was easy, and availability was very difficult at that time. And so what it teaches us, because any localization, any production, R&D in Russia, so then certainly guarantees the availability of these drugs for the Russians. And this is very important, and this is the main purpose, the main idea. And to involve certainly international business in it as well, and this is very important. But we need to understand so that we are trying to deepen localization in this segment. I mean, it's just only involving international companies. This is not true, because we need just to give a chance to both companies, Russian, international. So, but if the company says that it's going just to transfer technologies to Russia, then certainly we welcome this. And we embrace this idea when international companies are transferring their technologies. And so now just we are prioritizing, and we support first and foremost so the development of these new drugs, and so we're working on it right now, and we are concentrating on the vaccines for for rotavirus, smallpox. So they were developing them as a hexa vaccine, developing. So there's so multi-purpose vaccines, multi-component vaccines were developing, because this actually it's a very nice application when you have to make only one injection instead of several injections. So much better to make only one injection. And so then it's all about economy as well. So there's a budget availability and state financing. So then it should be all in conformity with the requirements. Because so monocomponent vaccines, so they're certainly good, but multi-purpose is much more promising. And so then when we talk about this multi-component vaccine, certainly it takes time, but at the same time to develop. At the same time, we need just to look into the efficiency and efficacy, so that it should the money should be put to good use and be efficient, and so that the company invests in the development of multi-component vaccines. And so then we talk in activating poliomyelitis vaccine. So hemophilic infections, so hepatitis A virus, and some other vaccines that are in the portfolio of the companies. And there's different stages of the development, and we are working on it right now. And simultaneously, we support the different state programs, and so the R&D is done. So then flu vaccines as well. So then the most promising vaccine, so the best situation. So we fully meet the requirements of the flu vaccines in Russia. Then quadrivalent vaccine, an activated flu vaccine, has already been registered and put on the register. And then the microgene 40 vaccine registration effort has been successfully done. And so then that's a bio. It's one of the most important players. So they partner with Russian international companies, and they are in talks with the transfer about the transfer of technologies. And so it's a big company, medical company, Russian one. And I think it's great, because we see this new vector of the development of this kind of partnership. The Nanolec is partners with the scientific institutions of the Russian Federation. So looking for new formats of cooperation within which they can develop new innovative breakthrough products and manufacturing facilities. It's obvious that so that to give a chance to the private business to invest, and then to invest in the R&D, and so that could be on the basis of private-public partnership programs may work well here. And so the state company with its guarantees and PPP projects might be very so useful and promising as on this part of the development of the partnerships in Russia and outside Russia between different scientific communities and private companies in Russia. The microgene, not Bio, Rostech. So then they have more flexible position, so vis-a-vis the development of partners and looking for new partners, and Federal Medical and Biological Agency, they're working with them as well. But one way or the other, it's the development factor of PPP, which may guarantee the success in this story. And so why? Because I agree with Leila, who was saying that we have a highly professional, efficient, and competent so R&D environment. So both medical and scientific, and this is great. And so that's a great wealth that we need to value. And we owe much to it. And so then people is the main wealth, and people just have a lot of knowledge in this area. And so we need to support it, develop. And so these kinds of formats, when private business is involved, may be very efficient. And then eventually, I cannot fail not to say about our partnership with the legislation and the State Duma and the Council of Federation and we owe much to them, and we need to give it to them. That the deputies have always supported such initiatives concerning development of our own competencies and local production, and they always support and go to much lengths to help us and improve the situation in this area. So at this point, I will end. That's on my side, and we're ready to continue to keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so I'd like to thank you that was very well structured, uncluttered presentation. Thank you very much. It's wonderful. And so then let's talk with businesses. And I'd like to give the floor to, there are two points. So in our discussion, so we have managed to bring all types of businesses. We have an international company here, so represented by MSD, so then production today. And so the production is outside Russia. Then we have very good union of companies, French and Russian companies, very good venture. So that's a good example of joint cooperation, localization. Excellent example. And then, as it was said, so there is a Russian company as well, so that manufactures medicines. So we have three representatives of different companies. And so giving the floor to Mr. Katlinsky, I wanted to ask him to comment where do you see the challenges so then concerning this advanced vaccination schedule. So as a domestic manufacturer, what's your plans are? Good afternoon, colleagues. It's very nice to participate in such great discussion because we are discussing things that are related directly, now not only to the most fundamental strategic, and I would even go further and say so that is the basic parameters of future outline of a healthcare system, and then the practical steps that allow us to attain those. So first I want to refer to the presentation of the Minister of Health yesterday, and she actually outlined the vision of this process. So then vision, there is an English word, vision, and we should say that so it's a very good forecast so that delineates not only the today's situation, but it has to do with what the Russian healthcare should come within the next several years and more and long term as well. So very interesting position that actually inspires us and as business representatives that certainly helped this will help that. And so then if we go into greater details and talk about our more narrow task as a vaccination and prevention, I'd like to again go back to the presentation of my colleagues, Sergey Aleksandrovich, Sergey Anatolyevich, and they repeatedly mentioned that the cycle of production cycle of vaccinations, it's certainly different, considerably different from standard production cycle of any chemical drugs, any based on chemical substances. So there are different figures, but in practice, we know just in the Russian Federation. So then the shortest cycle is from 4 to 9 months. So that production cycle lasts. And then international cooperation, so it's even longer, years. And so what does it tell us? So that's planning should be put in place, and very accurate planning related to not so much the prospects of the putting together this production and manufacturing effort, but our responsibility is how to guarantee the proper smooth production, and then procurement is very important. So on demand, but so making vaccines available on demand, and as our so leaders were saying. So we need to do it well beforehand. And then another international example I'd like to give you, because it's not only for Russia, it's characteristic of the whole world. And so, for example, like flu. So a lot has been said about flu. So the World Health Organization evaluating the demand for flu vaccines. So 2.5 billion doses, 2.5 billion doses, and the real production capabilities right now in the global, so it's only 500 million only. That's why this big gap is this very serious gap, huge gap, and so we maybe because we can just make smaller mistakes, but we don't know exactly how huge gap it was between. Because the demand is much higher than the capabilities of manufacturing, and so that's why it means that if we are to address this issue of providing these vaccines, so to ensure the availability of the items in the vaccination table. So we need not only just to start manufacturing in the required volumes, but we need to make sure that we even produce more than we might need in the near future. So that is why we need to have some idle reserve capacity, so that would guarantee the proper manufacture of additional doses of vaccines in case so there is a higher demand. So there should be resilient production. So then logistics is very important as well. So you can see the situation keeps changing by the hour. So when there is a shortage of certain vaccines, that is why we as manufacturers, those who procure and provide these vaccines, so we should not just make sure that we can manufacture more than what the demand might be. And so we speak about the vaccines. Let me refer to the opinion of many specialists.
Russian and foreign are leading in science and research intensiveness. So it's clear that to produce modern vaccine, the latest achievements in science are used, the top-notch discoveries, and it's a costly story. It's an expensive thing, and we should understand that supplying immune biological drugs and primarily for the national calendar and regional calendars, and providing the markets, it's a costly story, because it's a research-intensive industry, especially what Sergey Anatolyevich said, that we work closely with the scientific community, and I'm sure that Mr. Vladimir Khristenko will speak about and work with think tanks, institutions, Academy of Sciences, healthcare, ministry institutes, and surveillance research institutes and other agencies and executive authorities on jointly we work on the scientific research fundamental, and to provide the top level of the products we need. And the business certainly takes part in investing in scientific research, and sometimes it's not even of applied but fundamental nature. And speaking about the policy and strategy of the National Biological Corporation and Rostechnologia Corporation, so there are several types of activities. Primarily, the routine supply of vaccines for the calendar, and logistics and timely supply of vaccines within the national calendar. And there are problems also, and the forecast. So we need a specific, an accurate forecast and the pricing. And that's where I want to thank the government that last year has revised the pricing at the at the tenders and linking it to the minimum registered price. So minimum registered price, and so kind of in this way dovetailed the immunologic drug prices to other drugs to determine the price at the state procurement bids. And there are other issues in terms of control. So I shall request you to kind of, suspend, because we have more speakers and little time. So passing the floor to the next speaker, Guillaume Schelter, General Manager of Sanofi Pasteur in Russia and Belarus. And then I understand immediately would like to pass the floor to Vladimir after you. So as an international company, as a company partnering with a Russian local partner, so same question goes to you. You have found a convenient shape and combination to enter the Russian market. And how can you see the key success formula in order to comply to your to live up to your commitment? What are the challenges that you can see as key challenges and your proposals to the success formula?
If I should answer in one sentence, I would say that the most difficult thing is to find the right partner. And I'm happy that we found the right partner in Russia. Now, when it comes to the transfer itself, and I would like to come back on what Mr. Minister said, Mr. Kraivoy said, on the availability of the vaccine. We should be very careful not mixing availability of a vaccine on one side and the capacity of producing a vaccine on the other side. It's not because you are able to produce a vaccine that you can supply it. As you know, we need between 2 and 4 years to manufacture a vaccine. And if today you express the need of a certain amount of doses of vaccine without anticipating this need, there is a lot of chance that you will not find the doses available, even if you have the capacity to manufacture this vaccine. I think we'll come back on it later. Just now coming back on our journey of localizing our vaccine, I see that 14% of the vaccines are from France, but they are now from Russia because they are manufactured and released by Nanolec, and they are less and less considered as a French product since we are transferring our capacity of producing these vaccines in Russia to our Russian partners. However, it's a very long process. We started 4 years ago by signing an agreement in the St. Pete Economic Forum. The usual timelines to localize the production of a vaccine are between 10 and 15 years. We started some projects in India 15 years ago, and we still haven't finished it. So it's a very, very long process due to the fact that 70% of the life of the production of the vaccine is dedicated to quality controls. We must ensure that each dose we sell everywhere in the world has the same quality as it's manufactured in the US or in France. The second point is that it's extremely complex. We're not transferring a solid form, we are transferring biological products. It goes through massive technical transfer, it goes through a huge knowledge to transfer to our local partner, and so a very high investment in the human capital. You need to find the proper experts on the market. And the consequence of having a long and a complex transfer is the cost. It costs a lot of money. I think Vladimir will come back on it, on the huge investment here to perform. This being said, I really like to come back on this important point of the capacity versus availability. For sure, we all studied economics, and the enemy of the high price is a low predictability of the market. having a predictable market allows you to have cheap price. And today in Russia, we can say that we have cheap price. The Pentaxim we are selling now in Russia is 40% below the floor price of other countries where it's registered. So we have very cheap vaccines now in Russia. We must ensure that these cheap vaccines will help us to make enough money to continue to invest, because at Sanofi we invest €1 million per day in R&D, and we need to prepare the launch of the next generation of vaccines, including more combo vaccines, for example. So we need to ensure that this predictability of the market, this pricing of the vaccines, and the capacity are three of them are aligned to serve the same goal we have here, and I think it was mentioned very well by Leila. It's the health of our kids.
Владимир, тогда, да, как обещал, Владимир Христ...
So, Vladimir Christenko, Chairman. So, thank you, dear colleagues. I'm happy to speak to you here. I don't want to delve into minute details of prices and costs, but in our industry, the devil is in the detail, but I would like to say kind of in general. So everything starts with the vision. This long-time nature, from all points of view, production, development, calendar development, inventing new vaccines, is a key aspect of this industry. So without a long-term vision of the calendar, industry, healthcare system, and long-term vision, 10 years and more, we cannot develop this industry. It will be difficult without long-term vision. So coming back to the presentation of Veronika Igorevna, we saw slides that spoke about the prevention part, including the vaccine, requires approximately 10% of the costs, healthcare costs, and give you approximately 60% efficiency or effect. And that's what you should keep in mind making decisions in investment in healthcare. We do not consider it as costs. It's an investment, not a cost. And we understand that immunization and disease prevention, vaccination is the most efficient type of healthcare. And then the community should decide on the development. But my position as a citizen primarily, so if there is an infection that can be controlled by vaccines, and then it should be done. Now, speaking about the challenges that we have, I would like to thank Sergey Anatolyevich for kind words about the polio vaccine. He may not remember, but it's not by chance we started the project. The project actually took 5 years. In 2012, we started it to registrate the poliomyelitis vaccine. And we started doing it because we had the program document, 57 strategic drugs that we need to localize in Russia. And responsible Russian companies took the list and selected something as priority. So we kind of broke down and we included us. We took the polio vaccine and brought it to the market. But we really had a serious program document. It did not give us a guarantee, but we felt that it was going to be in demand and it was kind of practical. And speaking about the vaccines included in the calendar, and we virtually are self-sufficient. It is a more clear-cut and simple way. We understand the volume. We understand the birth rate. We understand the purchase volume. So for at least our own horizons and our own planning, we can more or less build our strategy. But from the operation point of view, the long-term contracts topic and you name it, we need it. We need to go back because the manufacturing process is very lengthy. And and there are there are not enough vaccines, so the production program, manufacturing program, has to be fixed. We know that the healthcare ministry works a lot, and we expect that there will be a transfer from 1 year procurement to more years procurement system. Speaking about this an operation cycle, speaking about the development and long-term new vaccines, for instance, that we need to add to the calendar. Leila was talking about the papillomavirus vaccine. From the operation point of view, to deliver, to supply in 2023, you need to start thinking about production now. What if there is no manufacturing yet? If the vaccine is not registered yet, we need to add another 5 years. So speaking about 10 years, it's not a figuratively, figurative speaking. It's life. It's the need. It's a must. If we want to have full cycles of vaccines, we need to actually give it 10 years. In 5 years, I want to buy your vaccine, you should say. And then I will write it down in the 20 strategic vaccine document, just like we did in 2011. Go and work and come back in 5 years and supply at the coordinated price. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to support you. First, there is capacity to reduce the time of launching the drugs, because we have created all the production competencies in Russia according to all the international standards. Like Sanofi and Nanolek say that once you have the development, the formula, and have brought it to the clinical study, you don't need to actually build production capacities. You can partner with the companies who have and put the production in the existing capacity, which will be faster and more efficient. And such partnership, why I named, this collaboration between scientific who have the portfolio of interesting products and who have brought them to a certain stage. It's much faster and more efficient. You can do it at the existing production sites, be it Rostech and Bio and Nanolek and other production facilities. We have, you name it, we have them. And that's number one. Number two, speaking about the supply and availability, I say again, we develop our own competences to increase availability. When we need the product in the certain quantity, we can supply from our production sites if we produce. If it's not produced, but it's important, this is availability factor in any case would be delayed, because we need logistics, additional time, and in this respect, speaking about availability, I meant it. And considering the level of localization, Vladimir spoke about 57 drugs and immune biological drugs. We have an instruction of the government that within the list approved by the government, we need to supply 90% of the list in Russia. And all the tools and all our measures as the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Foundation of Subsidies and support of clinical research and preclinical studies. We have special regulation to support Russian manufacturers. In the pharma industry this year, we supported additionally by economic measures for procurement substance manufacturers. So a number of tools, financial, non-financial, targeted at active development of the local production in Russia. That's why I use this opportunity to kind of drive it, drive the nail, and develop the partnerships between Russian and foreign companies. So the maximum focus will be on building local competences. So it's a very interesting discussion, but we have to actually observe the timing and start discussing the third matter, though we are actually running late. And I would like to pass the floor to the next presenter, Mr. Murashko. So, as I told you in the discussion, indeed, we spoke about the problems and the planning and the calendar, and we spoke at length about the difficulties in production. And as a head of the surveillance agency, so switching to the execution phase, what are the key goals and targets and problems? What's the focus? And I shall just leave through the slides. So non-compliance, working with population, things, create awareness and concerns about inefficiency and adverse effects, fears. And so we live in the modern world where vaccines turned out to be proven. We still, find it ironic that many people obstruct the process. So what are the challenges? Yeah. What are the conclusions you find? I see that primary questions, again, the primary concern of vaccination is kind of necromancy. Yeah, concerns about the safety. It's medieval ages perceptions, and this is a serious problem, and we need to build the whole system from manufacturing to medical organizations and patients. We need to create awareness, and surveillance system in Russia has been through the WHO pre-qualification structure by all the regulatory agencies, HOM, Health Ministry, Roszdravnadzor, Surveillance, and Ministry of Industry and Trade. So again, we need to get some kind of external evaluation, and it has been done. So the system in Russia actually conforms to the WHO standards. And the next matter is quality control. We have been talking about it, and we used to have stagnation years, but we.
And how just we need to do this quality control, and so then from the production side, so then the legislature settled down these issues, the Council of Federation, and the President signed it. So there was the change in the Federal Law 6061, so which talks about selling. So there's a 12-month transition period, so during which all the regulatory documents should be signed and passed and become effective about the control and quality control, so which fall under this Federal Law 61. And so we have set up this working group to form the regulatory document in the Russian Federation, so type ACABR, so existing in the EU. And so then with the European Quality Directorate, so we put together this working group, and we are working on it together. So we update the data concerning so the vaccines and the certain parameters about the specific activities and efficiency, efficacy, etc. So that's why this chapter cannot operate without high quality labs that exist in Russia. There are 12 labs, and so they make it possible. So then number 13 is going to be commissioned soon. It's being refurbished now. And then there is another lab belonging to the Ministry of Health. So these labs are sufficient to guarantee quality and to provide state financing. So the labs have gone through the external audits, and Roszdravnadzor and Ministry of Health labs So they are part of the network of MCL labs of the European Directorate. And this is very good because they've gone through this very strict control. And so then we talk about side effects after the immunization is over. And so then we have reconsidered certain areas. So there was an order issued recently, 1070 of Roszdravnadzor, and this Health Oversight Committee, and it conforms to the European document of pharmacological oversight, and so that sets new parameters. So we follow that system, and then the Association of International Manufacturers they participated. So we are translating matter into Russian. And a new version is going to be published so very shortly in Russian, where the pharmacological oversight principles will be implemented on side effects after immunization, will be reflected there. Then we are polishing the information framework, and and information exchange, and the CH2B and to B. So it will be there, and then including this year, so we're planning to form mobile application to operate it properly. And so we have completed the work on another document. So we're just going through it with a fine comb. And so Elena Nikolan and other stakeholders who participated in the development of this manual, so how to consider side effects after the immunization. And so we are just polishing it off, ironing it out, and I think within the next 2 weeks it will be published. And it will definitely help both so Rospotrebnadzor, because Rospotrebnadzor participated in the development of this document, so it will be done jointly. And we found common understanding and developed this approach. And this interagency interaction was very important to settle down, and so transparent. And so then some more points. First, it's the serialization, because so managing so leftovers and stocks, managing stocks, so then write-offs, managing stocks, and so then serialization, so should be done as part of the issues related to so side effects and complications. And so what we see now is so there are some comments in the regions made in the, so when there are many unused vaccines, and so then 2018 turned out to be the best year, because before so we worked a lot with the regions to make sure that there will be no stocks left, and so how to distribute, how to store vaccines. And that's why in 2018 so we did not, we saw only some very few violations concerning managing stocks and storage requirements. And so then the culture of application, and so we need to measure shelf life, and so we need to minimize so that's to fight those fears. And so in order to do it properly, we need just to follow the vaccination recommendations, so condition of the patient, the timelines, so the appearance of so side effects, providing medical help immediately. And so this is this is very important. So how to go around it. So everything which is part of the medical culture, and and providing health support to the patients. So then there is another point. So then the last point that I wanted to concentrate. Okay, Sergey Aleksandrovich concentrated on it. It's a big systemic work that the regulator has to do. and the industry. So we need just to work with the population, increase their awareness, so there's this anti-vaccine lobby. So we need to minimize their impact, and so that the vaccination availability should be done in accordance with the schedule, with the calendar. So then there is an ethical issue, because business can be accused that they advertise their products. So what's the role of business? So how does business see its role? So on the one hand, so people are not aware about the importance of vaccination, and then some people think that vaccination is not efficient, is not effective. What should business do? What's the role of business here?
We cannot go on and advertise our products. That's against regulation, as it should be. But business can partner with the MOH in providing the necessary data that educates people proactively. And with today's digital technology and the revolution, social media, be it or otherwise, there's lots of opportunities to do so. I will add one more thing. It's one thing to provide people global data or modeling and studies. It's another thing when you give them local data, either Russian on the national level or from their region or their territory. And that's why I think it was mentioned before, it's important to generate local data to show the impact of the vaccination in their local community, in their region, and in their country. And I think eventually that was what will give confidence and will balance the anti-vaccination campaign. You have to understand that this is very few people, but they're very loud. So when we decide to put our head into it and collaborate and make, and change that, it shouldn't be difficult, I would imagine, once we decide to do that.
Марван, спасибо большое, да, вот особенно за последнюю реплику.
Thank you very much. So this is very graphic. Thank you very much. And so since I act as a moderator, so we have just finished what we wanted to consider, the three issues. So we covered them all. And so now I'd like to ask the person, Mr. Farakhov, who is on the presidium right now. He's got this unique experience. So in his career, he was the regional minister, and he worked in the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finances. So he's a deputy of the State Duma. You have this unique experience. And so because you were wearing different hats and approach this issue from different angles, and I wanted just to so could you just recap it? Could we just sum it up and probably just formulate the key messages? So answering the question, what needs to be done? What needs to be done to make sure that our calendar should be the advanced calendar? So then, good afternoon. Thank you, Alexander. So I think that this is one of the most interesting sections to discuss these issues, definitely, and for professionals, stakeholders. So just thank you that you responded and came, and I'd like to thank all those who spoke, and very interesting, spirited presentations. And then our foreign colleagues who, in spite of the difficulties that they have, so still do business and still come to Russia. And this is great. So we really value it and appreciate it very much. And when they called me so first time and asked me to come, and so then the tax and budget committee and what you spoke about, because I'm not in this business anymore, but then the State Duma, like the executive power, just to participate a lot, and we support a lot this program. And also budget and taxation is very important, very relevant to what we're talking about. And so then we can talk about the instruments that can address this very important issue set by the President of the Russian Federation. And today it's obvious and proven by many experts that the national calendar of vaccination it is so the efficiency, so this is very powerful, the most powerful instrument to address a very important issue set by the president. And so he would talk about the mortality, morbidity, so that 80+ reduction, etc. So So we need to. So that's why this calendar is a pivotal part of the task set by the president. And then the second point. We mentioned that we do have good regulatory framework. It's there, it exists, and I'd like just to recognize the people who formed it. So then the law on immunization, on vaccination, so the basic principles of the state policy just were identified, and so then it's the 10th anniversary of Gaidar Forum, because first time just 10 years ago was held. So what we started and what we have now. So we have created in the last 10 years a very good basis, very good foundation. Yes, because we have our own manufacturers. We have now we have very good calendar vaccinations, competitive calendar, which has been recognized as such, and we have a good strategy forward. And the good strategy forward tells us that there is a good consensus as to the forward movement, and I think this is a very important factor in order to make progress. And as one of the speakers spoke, so we have good experts, excellent experts. That's another very important point, and one of the main deciding factors. So that would guarantee success. And my today's effort allows to look at this problem from different angles. Social requirements, so then application and efficiency of the operation of the law, and monitoring, control. So the efficiency of the use of budget money. And and what we're discussing certainly is socially very important and among the people. And so in our constituents and our voters, so they certainly, so sometimes they're unhappy about the lack of information or the second opinion, and that is why people are very much interested in the subject and want us to work harder. And then I can just talk about some proposals. And our task is so we create laws. This is very important. And so then, and the basic law is the law of immunoprophylactics on vaccination prevention, right? So it goes back to 1997. This is the basic law, and so lots of changes have occurred since, and we spoke about that. So we are, so then anti-vaccine lobby is gaining ground. So they are so popular, and so by losing this battle. And that impacts the position of many parents when they stop vaccinating their children, and so we need just to step up the effort in this area, and so that is why. So we need to talk about the internet. Sometimes is illegally is using methods and measures just to to stop parents so vaccinating their kids, and so certainly we are against any restrictions on the internet, but sometimes so there are areas that need to be somehow controlled, and so if this anti-vaccine lobby is in the way of addressing the issue of the health of the nation, so we need to do something about that, and so then there are problems related to the second opinion and additional information. So we could consider this possibility of improving our legislation, because this immunization program, so whereby independent companies or a working group, so that our working group was presented by the independent organization. So they probably should generate annual reports about the status of vaccination and how the people, the nation, so regards this information, and so sometimes people do not use this information, which is available publicly, but they don't read it. So these three positions that I identified, and wanted just to add that financing is there. So this is the federal position, and so then money is allocated. appropriated. And so about vaccination is certainly is something that the constituent units of the Russian Federation should do. It's their responsibility, and what we've been discussing is unfortunately so inequality of the constituent units of the Russian Federation from the viewpoint of their income, and so some constituent units are much richer than others, and this inequality certainly eventually ends up in different levels of availability and accessibility to vaccination of the residents of different constituent units with different level of income. And so that's why we need just to increase financing of the constituent units that identify the equal availability of the vaccination program. Then what I like the idea voiced by Vladimir Kristenko that to develop and address tasks, so talk about the infrastructure of the development of our society, and that will eventually guarantee the proper follow-up on the implementation of the national goals. And so then the timelines have been identified by the law, the federal law 44, etc. And so there are some positions which in this law, and so some decisions were made concerning the development of the vaccination program. And we need just to follow up on that, and we should not stop. And then find common ground, the State Duma as well. Very important proposal that would allow not only to develop additional manufacturing facilities, but then a long-term contract will give it a chance to eventually produce vaccines that will be cheaper, a more reliable supply, and more efficient, and high quality and safe. So we need just to create a properly forecasted terms of operation for business, and predictable terms of operation for business. And this is very important, and that's what will make businesses interested. So thank you once again for the wonderful, interesting discussion. I think that is the final slide. I think that everything just came in as a good recap. So we know just what needs to be done. So state and business, and so there is this sign of plus. So then, and I'm sure that. So all this puzzle falls into place, and this is very important. And I think that all participating in the discussion will join this working group, because we'll need to submit our proposals to the government to express the opinion and the position of the stakeholders in order to achieve the goal. Thank you very much for the discussion. Thank you. So good day, and till we meet again.
Мы поблагодарим нашего модератора, уважаемые коллеги. Спасибо.